Naomi Bell didn't get fired. She quietly vanished, like a typo no one wanted to correct. One morning, her company badge stopped working. The security guard tilted his head and said, "Ma'am, do you work here?" She laughed, that kind of laugh you let out when you stub your toe in public and pretend it didn't hurt. Naomi was the founder. Her name was on the annual report. Her face was on the lobby wall. But today, the only thing that opened for her was the service elevator. And as she stood inside that metal box, holding a cup of $5 coffee and a heart full of irony, she realized something. They weren't afraid of her failing. They were terrified she might keep winning. If you've ever felt like your presence was too loud even when you whispered, if you've ever been asked to tone it down when all you did was breathe with ambition, then this story, it's not just hers. It might be yours too. Like, share, subscribe to Racist Exposed, where the ones they try to erase write their own plot twists. Before she became Maya Rhodes, before she coded an entire rebellion into a glitchy office printer, Naomi Bell was simply a black woman in a blazer walking into a boardroom that had already moved on without her. They called it a strategic restructure, but let's be honest, it was a vanishing act. 6:47 a.m. Atlanta still glistened with the dampness of night mist. Naomi Bell stepped out of a silver-gray sedan. Her heels made no sound on the granite steps of Oryn Capital, a 12-story glass tower, sleek and modern to the point of emotional sterility. She held a steaming oat milk coffee in one hand. Every step she took carried a presence that made others move aside, not because she was intimidating, but because she never needed to try to be respected. And for years, this had been the home she built from a pitch deck and a wild belief that a black woman could raise $8 million without needing a white male co-founder. She approached the main entrance sliding glass with platinum steel frames, held up her employee badge, beep, red light, clunk. The door didn't open. She paused. Not out of worry but surprise. Naomi Bell had never been stopped by any door. Not in business, not in any building. She tried again. This time, tilting her wrist for a cleaner scan. Beep. Red. Clunk. A soft click of plastic against the reader. A slight tension in her cheekbone. She gave a small smile, the kind you offer yourself, as if everything was just a glitch. She checked her ID badge. The photo was still her neatly tied bun, direct gaze, no forced smile. The line below read, Naomi Bell Founder, Executive Vision Lead. Right name, right title, right building, wrong. Something. A voice called out from the reception desk. "Can I help you with something?" Naomi turned. The young woman clearly knew looked uneasy, like someone who had accidentally blocked a person she was supposed to recognize. Naomi smiled, calm, assured, not accusatory. "I think the system's acting up. Can you call Bill from security to come down?" The receptionist hesitated. Bill's off today. Jace is on morning shift. I'll check right away." Naomi nodded. "Thank you." She stood still, didn't step back, didn't pace. She simply stood before the door that refused her, back straight, lips dry, eyes not searching. No one in the lobby greeted her. No glances offered conversation. Only the hum of a coffee machine in the corner, and that quiet chill you feel when you're left standing outside a world you built. 21 minutes later, the coffee in Naomi's hand had cooled. Oat milk foam burst into little rings like fish eyes. A man approached from the left hallway. New uniform. Tentative steps. Name tag, Jace T. "Good morning," he said, voice just above a whisper. "I was called to check." Naomi held up her badge wordlessly. She wasn't used to introducing herself in this building. Jace scanned the card. A soft beep, but no green light. He looked at the reader, then frowned. I don't see any active access tied to this ID. No department assigned. Naomi paused, tilted her head. What do you mean? Could be a system error, but your name doesn't appear under current staff. Naomi was silent. The smile was now gone from her lips. Do you know who I am? Jace blinked, then looked more carefully at her face, like trying to recall a company email he may have skimmed but couldn't place it. I'm not sure, he admitted. Do you work in one of the departments? Naomi exhaled. Not long, but enough to thicken the lobby air. I'm the founder of Oryn Capital. Jace stood upright, eyes widened, still unsure whether to believe or apologize. I didn't know. I just started the morning shift here 3 weeks ago, he stammered. If you'd like, I can call the floor 6 supervisor. They'll have better info. Naomi nodded. Do that. But as Jace pulled out his phone, Naomi turned away. She had no intention of standing another second in a space where the building still bore her fingerprints, but no one remembered her face. The rear exit of the building was dimmer, bathed in amber light, left fire escape stairs, right a steel door to the freight elevator where packages and forgotten deliveries moved. Naomi pressed the button. No greetings, no scanner, no need to prove who she was. The door opened. No, welcome back. Naomi. Just cold metal and the whoosh of a ventilation fan. A kind of silence that knows how to listen, the same kind she knew in the garage startup days. She stepped in, a woman in a suit, holding cold coffee, riding the service elevator in her own company like a late water delivery worker. The door shut behind her. 6th floor. The elevator dinged dryly. Naomi stepped out. Her heels clicked softly on wood floors like a guest walking through her own memory. The hallway hadn't changed: soft yellow lighting, gray walls, seasonal motivational posters, none with her face. She passed the comms room, strategy, PR, all now filled with new faces, young, identically dressed, heads down in laptops as if the world was just metrics and deadlines. No one looked up. No one said hello. She had no badge, no name, no permission to exist. The boardroom was at the end. Frosted glass blocked the view. Inside, projector light lit the wall with a crisp slide that read, "Transitioning into the next phase modern, diverse, scalable." She pushed the door open. No one turned. She was no longer Naomi Bell, the founder, the woman who once shaped every word of the first slogan. She was just a woman in a suit who entered the wrong room, or at least that's what the eyes pretended. At the long table, 11 people. 4 she once interviewed. 2 she had mentored. 1 had once cried in her office after being passed over for promotion. None looked at her. They looked at the slide. A polished slide, a new dream, a diverse beginning optimized by clever language and deliberate forgetting. Naomi walked closer. Someone fumbled with the remote and clicked to the next slide the new org chart. No Naomi Bell. No title executive vision lead. No faded portrait to mark a founder. Just blank. She stood still. A silence no one tried to fill. The air conditioning hummed. Lights glowed. But something else chilled the room, the cold of a collective decision to treat her like white space on the blueprint. Naomi inhaled. No one heard it, but everyone felt the air shift. She didn't speak, didn't slam the table, didn't ask why. She simply stood and made everyone choose, look her in the eye, or keep looking at the slide. No one spoke. No one gestured her to sit. No welcome. Naomi stood there, inside a room she once sketched on A3 paper in her sophomore year of college. The wall where she once pinned the funding map 2020 was now an LED ticker scrolling finance quotes, forgetting who created the first dollar. A figure stood up, Linda head of people, beige midi dress, eyes avoiding more than 3 seconds of contact. She walked over, hands slightly trembling, holding a white envelope, no logo, no seal. Just the kind you get in junk mail, not in boardrooms. Linda stopped in front of Naomi, spoke softly. "This will make sense later. HR asked me to give you this, quietly." Naomi took it, no questions. She opened the envelope. No apology, no internal memo. Just a glossy flyer, rounded font. "Congratulations, you've unlocked 50% off on your post-leadership transition journey course. Let go. Reset. Rebuild." Naomi read it slowly. Didn't blink. No one moved. One adjusted a tie. Another scratched a neck reflexive. No one looked into her eyes. And she didn't need to look back. She folded the voucher, slipped it into her blazer, didn't speak, didn't object, didn't ask why. She just smiled. Not big, not long, not warm, but enough for the entire room to feel a chill down their spines. The kind of smile that makes people wonder, did they just win, or just exile the soul of the company? Naomi turned, walked to the door. No one stopped her. No one called out, "Wait." Naomi, this must be a mistake. Only the sound of heels against tile, and that vacuumed feeling like she had just taken the air out of the room. She didn't look back. And that was the last time Naomi Bell ever stepped foot in Oryn Capital. Not because she was kicked out, but because she shut the door herself before they even realized who they had lost. 4 weeks passed. No press coverage, no lawsuits, no LinkedIn post titled "Closing a Chapter After an Incredible Journey." Naomi vanished from the public eye as if she had never existed. She didn't speak out, didn't post, didn't like or share. A silence that the investment world described as too quiet not to be suspicious. She retreated to her old apartment in South Atlanta where the linen curtains still smelled faintly of stale coffee, and the external hard drive still sat beside the teapot as if the startup were still in its pre-seed stage. Naomi spent the first few days sleeping, then reading, then writing. Writing a lot. Not about Oryn, but about the hollow weight of redefining yourself when you're no longer someone. By week 5, she opened her resume again. An impeccable record, 3 successful funding rounds, named among the top women in fintech, lecturer at an Ivy League school, keynote speaker at a global conference on community finance. She sent out 21 applications to finance firms, tech conglomerates, nonprofit organizations, even to places where she had once mentored or invested as an angel. 3 days passed. No replies. A week. Still nothing. Even the startup she had given 50 coles to 3 years ago stayed silent. Naomi started to sense something was wrong. The first message came from Tisha, an old friend in senior HR leadership. "Naomi, you might be on the gray list. You were too high profile. They're afraid you won't be compliant." Naomi read the message 3 times. She didn't reply right away. She wasn't angry at Tisha. The messenger isn't the one who writes the verdict. The gray list. Not a blacklist, but never quite on the white list either. A shadowy space where no one needs to reject you because they never had to acknowledge you in the first place. Naomi began to feel unsettled, not because she was rejected, but because there were no responses at all, as if she'd been erased from the credibility map. She reopened her application tracker. Every cell was red no response. The feeling hit her again. A kind of free fall, no one pushing, no one catching, no point of contact. That night, Naomi sat in the corner of her kitchen, old laptop in front of her. The machine that had followed her since day one of the company battery worn out, casing scratched, but still, full admin access intact. No one at Oryn had revoked her core system credentials. Maybe it was oversight. Maybe they thought she wouldn't dare return. Naomi took a breath. Her hand hovered over the trackpad. She didn't know exactly what she was looking for. She only knew this: if something was happening beneath the surface, it wouldn't be found above it. The screen lit up under the warm yellow glow of the kitchen light. Naomi placed her fingers on the keyboard of the old laptop, its edges scuffed. Keys faded, but still just functional enough to access the system she had once built from scratch. She typed in her username slowly. No hidden characters. Just a simple line of text, unassuming, like the days before she ever imagined she could be erased. She tried her old password. No changes, no verification prompts. The system opened. Naomi frowned. Oryn had revoked her keycard access, erased her name from the website, and wiped every meeting log that included her, but they hadn't revoked her core system credentials. A part of her wanted to believe this was just a technical oversight. Another part, the one quietly exiled from the world she had created, knew better. They didn't see her as a threat. And that was their first mistake. She navigated to the internal dashboard. The personnel section appeared. She scrolled all the way down to the folders few ever touched. One file stood out. Leadership scoring, silent score. She opened it. A spreadsheet appeared. It looked like a standard attendance log, but instead of hours worked, each name had a color-coded label. Green safe, yellow monitor, orange at risk, red unmanageable. Naomi scrolled down until she found her own name. Naomi Bell, risk level, orange internal note. Decisive, independent vision. Resists directional shifts, female, black. She read that line 3 times, not to confirm it, but to etch it into memory, like a new kind of biological label non-compliant by nature. Naomi didn't cry. She wasn't surprised. There was only a thin, quiet smile, the kind that curls up like a paper cut at the corner of the mouth. Their phrasing was sophisticated, not stubborn, but decisive, not uncooperative, but has her own vision. And they didn't dare say black aloud, but still logged it as a risk indicator. Naomi shook her head, not out of pain, but because, in the end, the issue was never her competence. The issue was she made a system uneasy, a system that preferred heads bowed at the right moments. She saved the spreadsheet, didn't send it, didn't leak it. She just told herself one thing. If the system has labeled me a risk, then I'll become a flaw. A flaw they can't erase. An unannounced morning, Naomi Bell looked at herself in the mirror and saw a problem. Not because she was unqualified, not because her resume lacked anything, but because the system didn't want another version of her. She knew it clearly. They weren't afraid of her failing. They were afraid she might succeed without needing guidance. So Naomi chose to disappear. She started with her hair. Cut short. Clean. A soft wave. A strip of caramel highlight just enough to say I'm approachable. Not bold enough to be accused of trying to stand out. Large frame glasses, the kind worn to look scholarly, but never threatening. Clothes a cardigan, slacks, flats. Makeup just enough to avoid being called unkempt, but never enough to be called assertive. Her voice retrained each morning. Lowered pitch, slower cadence, less initiative. Gone were the sharp edges of someone who once ran an entire system. New name, Maya Rhodes. Age 34. Experience freelance work for nonprofits. Career objective. Supportive. Reliable. open to feedback. No mention of Oryn. No mention of building a billion-dollar company. No photo. No LinkedIn link. Just a black woman educated, unremarkable, agreeable. When she submitted her application, Naomi knew she was performing, but she also knew the game had no rules anymore. She applied for a position as a data analyst assistant, a role that most second-year stats majors could learn from a decent YouTube course. A supporting role, a seat at the margins, but she knew you see the center more clearly from the edges. 3 days later, a reply came. We'd like to invite you for an initial interview. No warm greeting. No thank you for your interest. Just a sterile line like thousands of other emails that had quietly pushed her off screen. Naomi laughed. A laugh with no audience. But if anyone had heard it, they would have known Maya Rhodes was the storm they mistook for a breeze. Interview morning. She wore exactly what the template advised: dark colors. No perfume, nothing eye-catching. Took the bus to the Oryn building, greeted no one, nodded to no guards. Just another applicant, soft folder in hand, sitting quietly in the waiting area like everyone else. The receptionist directed her to a small meeting room on the 6th floor. She walked in, sat down, placed her bag by her feet. Not betraying, even slightly. That 3 months ago. She was the one who signed the lease on that room. The door opened. The interviewer entered, blue shirt, tailored trousers, tablet in hand. He looked at her for a second. No raised eyebrows, no flicker of recognition. But Naomi knew immediately Eli, her former executive assistant of over a year, the one who always bowed his head when she said, "Redo it, cleaner, sharper." Now, Eli sat across from her. The man with the power to decide whether Maya Rhodes was qualified enough to assist the very system she had built. The door clicked shut behind her, emotionless. Naomi or Maya sat upright, hands folded in her lap. The ceiling light cast a faint shadow from her glasses onto the table. She didn't look up immediately. She waited. Still. Calm as if this were a conversation about utility bills. Leather shoes approached. Another man entered, light-colored suit, white shirt, thin tie. He held a file and a coffee mug, trying a little too hard to appear purposefully busy. When he looked up, Naomi paused for a beat. Not out of surprise, but because the script was painfully predictable. Zeke. Her old operations assistant. The one who once sat outside her office, typing emails with nervous fingers. The one who always exhaled in relief when Naomi left the room without giving more orders. Now, Zeke sat across from her, leaning slightly back like a man weighing 3 promising candidates. He glanced at the resume, stayed silent for a few seconds, then nodded. "So, Maya, have you ever worked under pressure?" The question came out rehearsed, like something he'd practiced in front of a mirror. Polite, steady, not sharp, not deep, not thoughtful. Naomi lifted her eyes, met his gaze, unflinching. Her lips tilted, not a smile, but a thin fracture of something breaking inside. Once I had to launch a $50 million product while I was in labor, but I'm better now. Zeke paused, unsure whether to laugh, be impressed, or take notes. He settled for a weak chuckle, quickly marked a checkbox labeled, "Creative answer." She saw it, said nothing. Across the table, Zeke delivered a few hollow lines about the hiring process, then closed with a smile as if he'd just granted a favor to someone lucky. Naomi exited the room with unhurried steps. The hallway was still quiet, ceilings still white, the system still intact. Only one thing had changed. She was inside again. Not by title, not by merit, but by invisibility. The elevator doors opened. Naomi stepped in, alone, pressed the ground floor. The doors closed slowly as if swallowing the years she once stood at the top. She looked into the blurred steel wall. Her reflection stared back half in light, half in shadow. No longer CEO Naomi Bell. Not anymore, and that was fine. Because now, the name didn't matter. What mattered was, she was back. Maya's first job at Oryn wasn't leading a $1 million campaign. It wasn't reviewing business strategies or meeting with investors. She was assigned broken spreadsheets, specifically cleaning data, merging columns, debugging errors in the internal application system, a string of tasks no intern enjoys and no team lead has the patience for. Naomi didn't complain. In fact, she welcomed it. The most tedious work is often where the forgotten things hide. Buggy code, unchecked folders, places the system assumes no one persistent enough will ever touch. She worked in a nameless office corner, far enough to avoid glances, close enough to plug directly into the mainframe. In her third week, while reviewing a data extraction path, she noticed a strange entry. It wasn't part of the main directory tree. No path would surface unless manually typed. Folder name Codex Model V2. Maya froze. Her eyes hovered for a few seconds, almost waiting for intuition to confirm what she already sensed. She clicked. Inside were rows of training files used to calibrate applicant evaluation models, not based on experience or credentials, but on something labeled Cultural Fit Score. A polished phrase for, "Do you look like us?" She opened the parameters table. The system assigned scores based on factors that appeared objective, yet were infused with pre-programmed bias. Email salutation, "Hi, team low score, dear manager, high score." Punctuation, exclamation marks, point, deductions. Short. Flat. Neutral sentences. Point boosts. Zip code applicants from low-income areas flagged as training risk. Profile photos. The darker the skin tone, the lower. The cultural compatibility. Probability. Each applicant received a composite score. Only those above a 7.5 were passed through to the interview stage. Naomi clenched her hand beneath the desk. Not because of the scoring, but because of how the system had turned discrimination into automation. A human might be biased, but a system trained to be biased will replicate that bias millions of times without anyone ever questioning it again. She wondered how many people had thought they weren't good enough when, really, they just weren't white enough, or obedient enough, or, too, authentic. Maya closed the folder. Didn't delete, didn't copy, just bookmark the path. Because this would have to come out, but not yet. She returned to the Codex folder like someone quietly scraping their fingernail beneath a slab of concrete. Day after day, after official hours, Maya stayed late, sometimes just to review a few lines of code, sometimes to reread rejection logs of discarded candidates. No one asked, no one noticed. To them, Maya was the diligent contract worker, not dangerous, not remarkable, not suspicious. And because of that, she began to unmask what they believed was objectivity. She noticed a pattern. In the applicant logs filtered out at the resume screening stage, there was a strange commonality. Most of them were black. At first, she thought it was coincidence. But the deeper she dug, the more it repeated. She began taking notes. Applicants named Jamal, Aisha. Keandra had over 70% rejection rates. Emails starting with high team flagged as unprofessional. LinkedIn bios with words like advocate or community auto-disqualified. Profile photos with group pictures noted as lacking clear individual identity. Each element alone seemed harmless, but together, Fed into an automated filter, they became a trap. A trap coded from seemingly trivial details yet capable of killing a dream in 0.3 seconds of system processing. Maya didn't get angry. She documented. Documented in detail. Every flag. Every variable. Every rule. She began mapping out the system. Words that triggered red flags. Behaviors deemed culturally incompatible. Facial features quietly deprioritized. On the edge of the map, she wrote a single slanted line. Here, black is not a skin tone, it's a deduction. She remembered all the feedback she'd once received. Naomi, soften your tone in emails. Naomi, maybe change your profile photo, it seems too political. Naomi, avoid using community too much, it sounds unprofessional. She'd once taken those as helpful tips. Now she knew they were manifestations of a preset value system. Prejudice no longer spoke in words. It lived in code, in spreadsheets, in algorithms, in the apply button. A system could reject you without anyone ever needing to say you didn't belong. She sat under the shadow spilling from the window pane, as the office lights behind her dimmed one by one. Only the screen remained cold, glowing with lines of sterile code. Naomi or Maya quietly picked up her pen and added one more line to her map. It began with a glance, then a nod, then a message. Miss Maya, I heard you know how to write resumes that make it past the system. Maya wasn't the only one marked. She was just the only one who knew she'd been marked and remained calm enough to return to the board. She began noticing the filtered out, the names missing from promotion lists, the employee badges that didn't change color after 12 months, the size after receiving. We appreciate your application, but... One Tuesday afternoon, Maya sat beside Deshaun, a new intern, 23 summa cum laude. He said, I applied to the strategy team 3 times, thought it was lack of experience. But yesterday, I changed my name on LinkedIn from Deshaun to D. Lee and got an interview invite. Maya didn't flinch. She simply asked, And your profile photo? Ah, I changed that too. Used one with a suit. No smile. Black and white. Stories like this countless. A Haitian woman named Marlene was rejected 3 times. She changed her name to Marie L. and landed in the finalist round. A Nigerian applicant was advised to tone down community mentoring in his bio. Maya started teaching, quietly, unofficially. Just a vacant storage room in the basement, a whiteboard, some markers, and a woman a bit too mature to be an intern, as one guy in the group joked. She taught how to reverse engineer the code. Use periods consistently in emails. Don't say, I'm passionate about. Say, I'm experienced in. Don't list social orgs, say cross-sector collaboration. Sounds harmless. She didn't teach them to become robots. She taught them to simulate just enough to slip past the radar, then decide their truth once inside. A network formed. No name, no logo. Just one rule. Don't let the system learn how we're breaking it. They shared email templates, analyzed auto-replies, built lists of flagged words. One member once asked, Maya, is this cheating? Maya replied without blinking. No, cheating is when the system sets rules no one knows exist. Gradually, these young people began to believe, not just in Maya, but in the idea that they could hack back the thing that once called them an error. One evening, when everyone had left, Maya stayed behind. The whiteboard was full symbols, formulas, arrows like an old-school war map. She picked up the marker, wiped half the board clean, then wrote, large across the center. If they control the AI, who controls them? She stared at it for a long time, not because it was a question, but because it was a signal. Monday morning, cloudy skies, the kind that makes you crave another coffee but not enough to say it out loud. Maya entered the office earlier than usual, before 8 a.m., but the elevator was already packed with people in suits, talking Q4 strategy while texting sorry for the late reply. On her desk, a handwritten note. Maya, please help prep the coffee for this morning's strategic leadership meeting in Sapphire Room. Thanks in advance. Linda, head of people. Maya folded the note, slipped it into her pocket. No reaction. She stood, walked to the refreshment station near the meeting room. Inside, tall coffee urns, bean grinders, sugar, milk, plastic spoons, all there, and a jar of sea salt fine grain, white like sugar, placed right next to it. She put on translucent gloves, opened the sugar jar, lifted the salt lid. Slow movements, precise, no trembling, no blinking. She scooped the salt, spoon by spoon, into the brew, stirred, closed the lid, cleaned everything, no trace. The motions of someone who once ran million-dollar projects now used to flip sweetness into a coordinated wince. 10 minutes later, the Sapphire Room lit up. Around the gleaming wood table sat the same people who had signed off on erasing Naomi Bell from the board. Each held an identical cup of coffee. Some took their first sips. Paused. A furrowed brow. A puzzled look. A silent glance around the table. But no one said a word. Because this morning's coffee had been prepared by the black intern, and in a world where cancel culture can erupt from a single misplaced comment, no one wanted to be the week's example. Maya stood in the corner, hands in pockets. She didn't serve coffee, didn't pass water bottles. She simply stood right where the frosted mirror caught the light near the window. She looked at the mirror, not the people. Her gaze passed like a shadow. No one mentioned her. No one dared ask who she was. Only the taste of salt in expensive cups whispered the truth. They no longer controlled everything. In Maya's mind, a thought echoed. I am the glitch, the ghost in the system they built, and this ghost is learning how to take it back. The meeting went on. Slides clicked. Someone adjusted the volume. Maya stood still. Her lips curled slightly, not a smile, but a closing gesture. Like the final period in a letter, no one had the courage to open. Some things don't need a script. They just need enough time and they'll become the perfect performance on their own. And this morning, Oryn Capital stepped onto that stage. The National Shareholders Meeting live-streamed for the first time to over 300 branches, partners, and financial media outlets. A rainless day, yet everyone wore jackets because the air conditioning on the 12th floor was as cold as the decisions from the board. Every seat in the hall was numbered. Each water bottle on the tables bore the label Oryn Sustainable. Slides had been checked for the 8th time. Cameras hung from the ceiling. Audio systems embedded deep into the walls. This year's slogan, printed in 3D on recycled canvas. Future first, people-driven, AI-enhanced. 3 phrases divided by hyphens meant to symbolize connection, structure, and modernity. Maya glanced at the banner for a split second, then turned away. Because she knew nothing connects people like an AI, trained to cut them out of the game. Backstage in the tech zone, Maya stood among a group of crew members dressed identically black polos, gray pants, shoulder badges that read technical support. No one called her name. No one remembered her face. No one asked why that tech lady was standing a little too close to the main control desk. She stayed silent, in character, in position. Except for one thing. In her left chest pocket was a small silver USB stick. No label, no name, just the data inside enough to leave a crack. Someone once said, every system works fine until one element stops following the rules. She thought, maybe I'm that element. A young technician named Ethan rushed by and said, "Hey Maya, we're testing the projector at 10:45. Screen drops in 30 seconds. Can you double-check the HDMI port by the panel?" Maya nodded. Didn't say a word. She simply adjusted the wire of her headset under her collar. 10:42 a.m. The screen began to descend. Soft blue light from the projector swept across the room like a surgical blade dividing the space into two. The ones who decide and the ones being observed. Maya stood by the cable box. Her fingers brushed the HDMI cords, appearing to check the signal. But really, she was confirming the exact 2-second delay between the primary projector and its mirrored display. She needed to know if someone accidentally inserted a USB. Where would the content appear first? In her pocket, the USB made no sound, but Maya could feel it warming, not from electricity, but from memory, from data, from those late nights spent in the office to prove one truth. This system was never innocent. She looked up at the projection so bright, it felt cold, so white. She understood why black faces like hers were never shown there in full. Then she turned away, no haste, no trembling. She walked inward quietly, like an uncompiled line of code, as if nothing were about to happen, as if a data quake wasn't sitting silently inside her uniform pocket. 12:00 p.m., official lunch break began. Executives left the room, some to take calls, others to check emails. Technicians stepped in to prep for the afternoon session, checking projectors and equipment. Amid the soft chaos, Maya walked to the control console. She didn't draw attention, just casually placed something on the desk between the signal splitter and the HDMI hub. A silver USB, unlabeled, small. Then she walked away, as if she'd forgotten a pen. A few minutes later, a young tech returned to the control desk. "Has anyone tested the slides yet?" "Not sure. Whose USB is this?" "Never mind. Let's just test it." He plugged it into the central projector, a motion that took 3 seconds. The main screen blinked, then turned completely black. No one understood what was happening. Some people paused mid-step. Some turned their eyes to the 5-meter screen, now an empty, silent void. 3 seconds later, a line of text appeared, bold white, centered. If your AI had a skin, what color would it be? No soundtrack, no narration, just words calm and sharp as a charge sheet. The entire hall held its breath. Then, the screen changed. A woman's voice played even neutral, devoid of emotion. "Welcome to Codex, an internal AI model designed to predict leadership risk." The first slide appeared a scoring matrix. The voice continued, slowly. Every candidate is scored based on 3 hidden signals: where they live, how they write, and how easily they follow directions. Together, these numbers create a risk score, and that score decides who gets called and who disappears. The video cut to a map of the U.S., hundreds of red dots clustered over majority black neighborhoods. If your zip code is considered high risk, if your tone is labeled assertive, if your history shows independent thinking, you are flagged. Your application is filtered out, long before anyone sees your face. Then a personnel record. Candidate Naomi Bell flagged, risk level orange reason, vision led, assertive, not easily redirected, black. The room froze. No one spoke, no chairs moved, only the quiet hum of the projector like a sigh. Some glanced at each other, but no one stood. The new CEO hesitantly approached the console. Scanning buttons. Pause. Stop. Input. Select. Hands trembling. Uncertain which cable to pull. Afraid to speak. Does anyone know how to shut this off? No one replied. Because when you're standing in a room full of white executives and a video exposing systemic discrimination is playing for the world to see, no one wants to be the first to touch the truth. Backstage, Maya placed a hand over her chest, where the USB had been, now replaced by a single heartbeat, faint but steady. This can't be stopped anymore. The screen stayed lit. No explanations, no glitches, no technical interruptions. Only a slow, steady female voice, as if reading from a prepared memo, written long ago, meant exactly for this noon hour. The following data is not from the media, not from hackers, not from a leak. This is internal content training materials, board emails, and real test reports from within the Codex system. If you are watching, you are seeing what was supposed to be deleted. An email appeared on screen, no grand headline. Just Subject Risk Profiling Draft, Internal Use Only. The message was short. Just 3 clean paragraphs, the voice of corporate efficiency. But in the final lines, the narrator paused. Candidates who tend to use language related to community or express strong personal identity are typically misaligned with strategic leadership direction. No one laughed, no one gasped, but everyone felt exposed, because a sentence dressed in neutral business language had just unveiled what the tech world had buried for years. The video shifted to a slide. No use of the word bias. Just 2 columns of phrases, one titled Voice to Adjust, the other Preferred Neutral Language. Some examples. Justice-driven, replaced with business-driven. My people, replaced with my team. Advocate for change, flagged as algorithmically disruptive. At the bottom of the screen, a fine print note. Training objective. Minimize cultural signal. Standardize leadership voice for optimal selection. A polished way to say erase all traces of minority identity. In the comms room, PR advisors whispered among themselves. One was drafting a press statement, another held a phone, hesitating lawyer or crisis manager. But no one stepped on stage. No one reached for the keyboard. No one could find the crisis playbook for a live stream that exposed a company's own organs. Behind the control desk, Maya stepped forward quietly. Each step like a quiet underscore beneath a melody exploding. No one noticed her. Everyone was staring at a system removing its own mask. She reached forward, pulled the silver USB from the projector port. No click, no safe to remove warning, only the silence of a completed act. Then, she placed her still-warm coffee cup back on the desk. The same cup she hadn't touched all morning, lid intact, temporary tech team logo still on the side. She turned away. No rush, no hiding, no urgency like someone escaping. She walked along the edge of the auditorium, past seated guests, past suits, slicked hair, and name badges that once called her a model leader. Now, they didn't call her anything, didn't dare. No one followed her, no one shouted, "Stop her." No hands reached out, no voice said Maya. At the end of the hall, a janitor mopping up a spill looked up. Saw a woman exit through the back emergency door, tech uniform, hair tied back, nothing special yet, something unforgettable. He murmured in his head, "Probably lighting crew." But Maya knew. She wasn't someone ending a shift. She was someone who had done what no one else in that room had the nerve to do. Hold a mirror to the system and let it see itself. 3 weeks later, the sun hung high over the Lower East Side, but October's chill still crept in through old glass windows. In a small street corner bakery, unremarkable. Warm, with the scent of butter and soft porcelain clinks, a woman sat at a window table. Wool hat low, a book left open. No one noticed her. And that was exactly what she needed. The wall-mounted TV played the noon broadcast. Breaking news. Oryn Capital has suspended all AI-based hiring systems. The Federal Bureau for Tech and Labor has announced an independent audit. A petition demanding Codex algorithm transparency has surpassed 200,000 signatures within 48 hours. The screen flashed a familiar clip from the shareholder meeting, and the bold white text over a black screen reappeared. If your AI had a skin, what color would it be? She didn't look up, just reached for her tea. The steam blurred across the wooden table. At the next table, a little girl turned toward her, maybe 8, black, hair neatly braided, ponytail bouncing with her nod. The girl glanced at the TV, then back at her. Her eyes held curiosity and caution, as if trying to match a face in real life with a ghost seen on the news. She tilted her head and whispered, "Miss, were you the lady in that video?" The woman gave a soft laugh, didn't answer right away. She set her teacup down, straightened the edge of a napkin. Only then did she respond in a voice low and calm, like wind brushing a sleeve. "No, sweetheart, I'm just someone who forgets to turn off the projector." She didn't look at the child. But the child smiled, as if she understood. Or didn't need to, only knew that this woman wasn't lying. The TV continued into panel discussion. Experts debated AI ethics, algorithmic fairness, the need for transparency. No one mentioned her. No name, no photo, no public credit. And that was how she wanted it. Not Naomi Bell, not Maya Rhodes, just someone who unplugged the right wire and left a question that the whole industry could no longer pretend not to see. She stood, left the bill unfolded, and walked out. No one turned, no one called her name. Only the doorbell chimed once, then silence. Inside, the TV played the video again. The screen was dusty, the image faint. But the final line remained, clear as ever. If your AI had a skin, if this story touched your heart, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Every click helps us bring more powerful stories of empathy, justice, and silent strength to life. Your support is what fuels this journey. Let's keep standing together and rising higher, one story at a time. Stay safe and inspired.